I'm Zak, I'm the head chef here at Casamia restaurant. The restaurant is just all about flavour, it's all about fun, and it's all about fire. We also cook on bincha and then wood, so everything just tastes amazing, everything's smoky, everything, the whole kitchen's fucking covered in charcoal now because we're using it so much all the time.
The fire is the big thing. I mean, it seems to be that people are wanting to much more cook on real fire, a bit like
definitely.
Going back to our roots of what
what
feels
funny.
good, like cooking on real fire.
Yeah, man. We've almost come full circle now. Like, obviously, for me personally, I'm not really interested in water baths, in sous vide cooking, in fancy chefy techniques and stuff. Like, I want to stay away from the term chef even, because I think that what we're doing is so far against that. Like, we don't wear chef whites.
Right.
None of us do. That's a bit of a thing for me. I don't want to be wearing chef whites. We just wear shirts in the kitchen now. All I want to cook is food that I absolutely love. And I think that fully comes out in the food. So
you're just executing flavour, like you said.
Yeah.
And I suppose with the clothes, that's the fun thing. So it's those big 3 Fs, isn't it? It's like, and with the flavour side of things, if it's all about flavour, then really the format sort of follows from that, doesn't it? And well, I think, would you say fun is the first thing?
I mean, almost, yeah.
Because if it's not fun,
I always like to say now that I think it's almost more important in there for us to be enjoying ourselves first before these guys, because then it rubs off on them and we play loads of loud tunes all night. They're always changing. I've got a little laptop just around the corner, so I'm always doing the playlist and stuff like that.
So you're DJing and cooking?
Fun music, yeah. Yeah.
You've been cooking professionally for about 12 years, but cooking all your life.
Yeah.
So in your professional career, when was there sort of eureka moment when you tried an ingredient, a Japanese ingredient, and can you tell me about that, and can you tell me what the ingredient was?
Before here, I've been here about a year now. Before that, I was at Enesia with Gareth in Wales, and he uses your produce massively. So I was involved in like the startup of when we used to use Kikkoman soy sauce, and then we got yours in, and it's incredible. So we switched over from using Kikkoman soy sauce for all of the seasoning and glazes and stuff like that, and then we got yours in, and we tried it, and it's almost incomparable. And that's the first time that I've ever tried a soy sauce of that quality, and to try it next to just a standard everyday Kikkoman that you can get down the supermarket, which I always thought was very good, and then to try that stuff, and it like blew it out of the park. That's something that sticks out for me.
So it's like taking these flavours that you know, and then same with the milk, I suppose you were talking about from Jersey. I mean, you can get milk anywhere, but it's about finding a craftsman. You know, we don't make any of the products. We've not got our own brand of anything. So, you know, we go out and we find people who love doing what they do. And like with the soy sauce, you're talking about Shibanuma. I mean, they've been doing it for 18 generations, and all the way through since the 1600s.
So completely, you can't even compare the two.
Who can do that? You know, so you know, from getting from a mass-produced product to something that's got all that love in there, you've got no choice but to go, right, well, I'm going to have to just accept that expertise and bring that into my food. And like you said, you can find that everything's just going to knock on a level.
It's definitely comparable, like what I'm doing and what you're doing, because what I'm doing in the kitchen is trying to find suppliers of any ingredient who are as obsessed with their job, with their craft, than we are in the kitchen, if that makes sense. I think that's what you're doing basically with all of your other little suppliers. Like,
it's finding passionate people who care. In fact, it's finding people who care. And then working with them to create something. So we're hunting for passionate people who do make products. You're hunting for passionate suppliers, and then I suppose the customer's hunting for passionate chefs. You know, and it's that virtuous chain that puts that amazing experience on the plate. So speaking about putting amazing things on the plate, what are you making for us?
So I sort of vaguely mentioned it already. We're going to be doing a little fire roasted quail dish, and it's tandoori style.
Oh, okay.
So I've made the most incredible little tandoori marinade.
And this is obviously not a Japanese recipe, is it? Because it's a tandoori quail.
Yeah, not a Japanese recipe at all, but there's loads of Japanese products and seasonings in it.
Interesting.
So loads of amazing Indian spices. In there we've got cumin, coriander, fenugreek leaves, onion seeds, loads of ground black pepper, loads and loads of amazing spices. But then outside of that as well, we've got some fire roasted sweet red peppers, which kind of brings everything together. And then all of that is then seasoned with loads of your mirin. Okay. There's also some gochujang paste in there.
Oh, from Korea.
Exactly. And then it's right at the end, after everything's been marinating, we marinate the quails for about 5 days. Before that, they're brined to season them. So you're just trying to get as much of that marinade flavour into the quail. And then once they've finished marinating, we then take that curry paste, basically, and then season it into the sauce. The sauce at the end is finished with lots more of that gochujang. And then it's finished with a bit of soy sauce as well. So the stuff we've just been mentioning. So it's a bit of a crazy one, because it's definitely
been around the world and come back.
Yeah, it's gone all over the place, the marinade, but it's so tasty.
Yeah, excellent. So it's all about flavour again, isn't it? Yeah, and it's like finding all these products and just fitting that jigsaw puzzle together. Yeah. I'm looking at the Escher painting over there, and I'm thinking, well, that shouldn't fit together, but it does. You know. And so you're going to make 2 dishes for us, aren't you?
Yes.
So if you tell us a little bit about the second dish as well.
So the second one is a bowl of ramen, basically. It's not clear, nothing. It's full of sheep fat, and then we'll pass that off, and we'll essentially add katsuobushi and kombu. So we turn that sheep stock into a dashi, if that makes sense.
But it's still got that lovely, umptious, thick, grindy
from all
ramen.
of the fat. Yeah, we have to give it a waz with the hand blender every single time it goes to the table, because otherwise it just splits out. But when it is
fat and the flavours that
together,
are coming
it's
in.
got the most amazing texture.
Yeah. Wow.
And then it's just finished with loads of your miso, seasoned with a little bit of rice vinegar and a little bit of mirin as well, just to balance it out. And then we just make some incredible noodles. So we get some toasted rye flour. We get some rye flour that we then toast ourselves in the oven to give it even more like roasted, toasted flavour. And then we make just a super simple little noodle from that. We roll them to order, which is pretty special. So they're as fresh as possible. And then we just serve those fresh noodles cooked in a little kombu stock with loads of that broth. And then we've got part of the sheep's neck, which has been brined and then really slowly braised. It's then finished in a pan just to get it nice and caramelised. And then we've got a little Szechuan glaze going over the top of that, and a little sheeted nori as well, just for a little classic like ramen touch.
So we've got the sheep miso ramen. I mean, unfortunately, one thing is that if anyone's watching this, they won't be able to get is the amazing smell.
Yeah.
Not just from the lamb, but from the whole place. But we've got these lovely fresh noodles. They've just been cut. They've just been made. They're rolled. We've got an amazing glaze on the stock from the mirins and things like that. And the lamb itself's got a lovely char on from cooking on the fire.
Yeah. Little sticky Szechuan glaze on there.
I can't stop. I just want to get into it.
Let's do it, man. Cool. So yeah, the idea is like you use your chopsticks for the noodles and the sheep, and then just pick the bowl straight up and drink the broth really. got to slurp the noodles, obviously.
Yep. Wow. Looks so lammy. Sheepy.
Yeah. I've never had a ramen this size. If you go to an amazing ramen joint and you had a bowl of ramen this size, there'd be something wrong.
I think if you had this ramen at that size, you'd be,
it'd be too much.
You'd be a champion.
Yeah,
so I've smashed all the noodles there. So at this point, it's all about drinking the broth, isn't it?
Just get it all mixed up and then just drink straight from the bowl, innit?
I'm a big fan.
Good.
So much refined ingredients and techniques on there, but you're hooking into people's psyche with, you know, like chicken curry and garlic naan, aren't you? But you're like, so you're aware of that flavour.
Yeah.
Usually, most people like chicken curry and garlic naan, and they try this and they go, hang on a minute, what am I messing about at? Why don't I? This is what I really want.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
So yeah, the idea is we'll start with this, and then like this is to mop up all the sauce.
Let's do it.
So that's amazing on its own, but the main thing is to mop up all of that juice that's there.
And we don't want to leave the gravy. Okay.
So yeah, the cook on the quail's lovely. Like, some people might look at this and think maybe it's a little bit pink, but for me, it's just the texture of it's absolutely insane.
And it's been cooked to such a low temperature for such a long time as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And the sauce, really fruity. Like, I mean, to me, apples and raisins and that sort of.
Yeah, super fruity.
Again, fruit. I love a raisin in a curry sauce.
Yeah, man.
I know it's a bit retro, but I really like it. This has got that sort of nostalgia feel to it.
Fresh banana in there and stuff like that.
Right,
like,
well,
that's what my mum used to make.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Just put raisins and bananas in her curries.
Man.
So yeah, like this isn't a particularly dainty dish. Like I certainly don't want anyone to be worried about picking this up with their hands and just digging into the sauce. Like, it's a bit of a messy one really, but that's kind of what curry is, isn't it?
Eating with your hands has got it's like cooking on fire, isn't it? It's got that sort of real feel. It's got a great crust on it.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, that's just down to the oven that we cook it in.
Really?
So into the rock box, yeah. And then so we do that just before service starts, so they're cooked fresh. And then just before the dish goes away, maybe like half an hour later, we'll just flash the naans back onto the actual onto the binchatan charcoal, so you get even more like crispiness.
And you get the big air bubbles, really soft inside, all the nice grains that are inside there, really.
Yeah, just like different variety and texture the grains give
and
you.
And more
really.
character. Yeah, and that char again, really good. I mean, on its own, I took the first bite without the sauce, and on its own, you're all right, aren't you? But then the sauce is just
the
extra
sauce
treat.
and that glaze as well, like.
I could eat a full meal of that.
Yeah, man, I might have to come eat one day.